Hi there, it's January the 4th and we continue our journey through the good news of Matthew, and we are reading from Matthew chapter 4 verse 12 and the rest of chapter 4. Now read at the beginning here that Jesus' ministry begins at the moment where John is arrested, where he's taken prisoner by Herod, and we read about that more fully in other places in the Gospels. But Jesus at this point chooses to make this his move. Now, at this point, he moves from Nazareth and he moves down to Capernaum. Capernaum is a village at the north end of the Sea of Galilee. In Hebrew, it's Kephar Nachum, the village or the settlement of Nahum, and he settles there. It's a fishing village, and Matthew says that the reason he does this is in fulfillment of the prophecy of Isaiah, and it's where Isaiah talks about Naphtali and Zebulun and the land of Galilee, and specifically the land of Galilee being the place where the people who sat in darkness have seen a great light. So again, Matthew is tying this back, pulling this back to connect to the Hebrew scriptures, which the Jewish people knew so well, to point to the fact that Jesus is Messiah. And then it says that Jesus begins his public ministry there in Galilee, and he's telling the same message that John the Immerser, John the Baptist, was telling in his preaching. Turn around, have a complete new way of thinking. Metanoite in Greek means have a different way of thinking about things, because inkike vasilia tonoranon, because the kingdom of heaven is coming, because God is made king. So actually, Jesus is bringing exactly the same words that John brought and continuing his message, the message that he has been the forerunner of. Now Jesus is now calling his first disciples, his first apprentices, and he calls them significantly, I think, for Jesus' foundation of his team. The first people he calls in his team are people who already have strong relationship with each other. He calls two sets of brothers. He calls Peter and Andrew and James and John. And fishing on Galilee as they were also used to working closely together and also defending one another. This would be a life-threatening occupation they were involved in at times, and therefore they had to work well together. So Jesus starts off his team with people, fishermen, who are not just blood brothers, they're brothers by family, but they're also used to working together and protecting one another in their occupation. It's a very strong start, and it's a third of Jesus' team of 12 that he starts off with strong relationships. It just shows how relationships are key to Jesus' community and the formation of Jesus' future. And he calls them to follow him, leaving their occupations behind, and he says, I'm going to make you fishermen of men. You're going to fish for people. This makes it clear that Jesus' aim and purpose is to turn around many more people. It's not just a small team he wants. He's not calling them to be recluses. He's actually calling them to go into the world. And they immediately begin to see this, because the preaching of Jesus' declaration that God is king, news of him goes all around to Galilee and into Syria, and people are drawn. Great crowds come together, and then we read here that Jesus is healing. He's healing all kinds of diseases. He's healing those who are oppressed, those who are mentally ill. He's healing many, and this is something that gives him a fame and a celebrity among the people, so much so that they're coming in great numbers. It's really key to see that Jesus is starting with this concept: have a complete change of thinking, have a complete change of thought. It's echoing the old words of the prophets from the Hebrew scriptures. Turn around, shuvu, turn around in Hebrew. Come home, come back to God. who is the covenant maker, the covenant keeper. Jesus calls us to do the same thing. And it's not just a one-off thing, not just something we do and then we never have to do again. It's a constant changing, it's a constant conforming to his way of thinking. It's a constant conforming to his lifestyle. So as we become apprentices, as we leave behind the things that were, and as we follow him, we see our lives more and more transformed into his image, into his pattern. Have a very good January the 4th.